Alright, so this is going to be video one, I guess, in a bit of a thing with Noah's TTR125. Noah had a Chinese 110 pit bike, and more recently he's shot up, so we needed to buy him something a little bit bigger. There's a couple of choices. I was looking at either the TTR125, the KLX 140, or the CRF 150. All of those bikes were target bikes because reasonably small capacity, small size, lightweight, around the 90 to 98 kilo mark, I think, across those three bikes. And all of them came with electric start, and more importantly, a 19-inch front wheel and a 16-inch back wheel, which just means that the bike can handle rougher conditions. So this one, we've had it a week, I guess, and I'm doing my usual thing, I suppose, where any bike can do with a little bit of improvement. So we're fixing up a couple of things. So this video, I'm just going to cover off what I'm doing with the carburetor, the airbox, and the exhaust, and a couple other things I've done so far. So this bike is a 2015. It's done very, very little Ks. There's a few things that give it away that it's not had much use. It's got the original factory, quality control check marks and whatnot. There's a few just up in here. So there's a few of those around the bike, blue ones and yellow ones, where they've checked torques and stuff. It's still got the original tyres on it, which, so it's done very little use. So I guess the first thing to do is, we're indoors because this is the bachelor pad and we can kind of do what we want here. The later model bikes come with this rear dress panel for the exhaust, and then underneath it is the baffle, spark arrestor, which I don't know if you can see that over the paper. Spark arrestor, baffle. It's quite restrictive. Number one thing I'm going to do is I've got a washer. It's it's like a mudguard washer, stainless steel. Outside diameter will be big enough for these bolts to go through. Inside diameter will be about the same size as that. And the reason for that is because this, as you can see, has got exhaust gases could get out theoretically from the exhaust. I think the previous owners pretty much just removed the baffle, which then has let the exhaust gases get all in around like so. So what we're going to do is something a little bit different. We're going to fit a washer that sits on here, and we're going to put some manifold sealant around that, and the inside diameter will be closer to this. We'll put some manifold sealant around this, and when we slap the two together, it'll stop the exhaust gases from punching out through here where the bolt holes are. So that's the first thing. If I get really keen, what I might do is I might get a tube TIG welded to the back of that washer, but we'll cover that later on. So there'll be a follow-up video on that when that washer turns up. Hard to get a washer that big in stainless steel, so I had to order one on the internet. It's coming. So 2015 model bike, hasn't done many Ks. So first thing that happened was the battery was completely dead. It's 2019, so 15 and 19, we're looking at 3.5 or 4 years. The battery was kaput. So I ordered a new battery. It's I can't remember what brand it was. SSB, I think. It's the same one that I put in a couple of other bikes. I had pretty good success with them. I've wired up a C-Tech cable, which is just going to hang there. This will just protrude out the bottom of the plastics when the plastics go back on. And that's hooked up to the charger right now because the battery's new, obviously. They sit on the shelf for a while. They usually need a top-up charge. You either start the engine and drive it if it's a car, or put it on a charger. So we're just going to put it on a charger. Second thing we've done to increase performance is open the airbox right up. What comes in the top of the airbox is this funnel, which it's not a lot of not a lot of size to that, and the Airbox lid. So that we're just sat there. So that's the change in that. What's really nice about this, the air filter on this bike, is that when you undo the side cover, the filter slides out, and then you can spin the wing nut off and pull the filter off the panel that comes out. Just makes it easier to get access to the filter to service it. So the top, that's the other wire from this, it's up around there to the battery. So right now the battery's on charge, so that should be Mickey Mouse. The third thing we've done is that we've changed the jet sizes. Now it took me a little bit of research on the internet to find out what jet sizes to use, but here's the detail if you want to pause it. I got these from Mikuni Oz, which, believe it or not, are based in Townsville, North Queensland. Pretty cheap. In fact, I found some prices to order them off the internet, and it was going to cost me more to order the Pilot jet from the States and have it shipped to Australia than it was to just buy it from these guys and have it shipped. Now, it was express post from North Queensland. It's not really next day delivery, so it came the day after, so it's fine. But there it is. It's a VM28486 is the primary, the Pilot, and the M100.604. So we're fitting a 17.5 Pilot and a 110 main. That seems to be a common theme. Pilot looks like this, if that is focusing, and the main jet looks like this. Now the main jet comes in a hex adapter, so when you unscrew this, what I found was I couldn't get this to separate from the hex adapter, so I had to put the hex adapter in the vise, spin this off, then I could fit the replacement. So, by the way, these are the original jets that came with the bike. So the other jets are fitted. So that's done. So that's it for the performance stuff. I'll show you what. So the rear subframe finishes, there. And the problem with the plastics is the plastics come to here, so if you're picking it up, you're trying to pick it up from the plastic. So I don't love that idea. In the older model bike, the one previous to this, there was a relief here that let you put your hand in so you can pick it up. So what I've done instead is I've got this, it's a tugger. Got all this stuff from MX Store, which is the old Ballards. And I've got that bolted through the rear plastic attachment point on both sides, and then and it's got it's elasticated there. So what'll end up happening is when the seat's there, that hugs the seat quite closely, but you can still get your hand up underneath it and pick it up. So that's that. The other thing that's happened is, obviously at some point in its life, I don't know if you can see that. It's hard to see. I'm trying to line up the camera. But the left handlebar is bent slightly, which steel handlebars, I don't know why manufacturers still do it, but they all come with steel handlebars, and they bend super easy. So this is going to get a set of RHK SCX. They're a YZ low bend. There's a reason for that. I'll talk about that in a minute. And a set of RHK bark busters, essentially. Now, I've got to be honest, I've never used RHK stuff before, so this will be a bit interesting for me. That I would normally use Bark Busters brand Bark Busters, and I would normally use Pro Taper brand 7/8 bars. So, yeah, we'll wing it. We'll see how this goes. Already things to note is that the rubber pad on the Pro Tapers has kind of a lip that makes the bar pad cover stay centered on the bar pad. So this is sort of this, it's just not quite as good foam or whatever, but these are like half the price of a set of Pro Tapers. So, and I got them in blue and they came really quickly, so we'll see how that goes. already with the RHKs. This is one I've sort of pre-assembled, ready to mount up. And then this is how they came in the packet. That sticker is just barely even on, so I did press this one down earlier, and it's just sort of lifted up in the corners. So I think what I'll do is I'll put it out in the sun. The reason the bike's inside at the moment is because it's almost winter, and I despise the cold, so I have to put them out in the sun, and hopefully they'll flex a little bit and pull together. Alright, now why do we get low bend bars? Right, so this bike, I learnt this when we did Braden's TTR. This, where the stock riser, which is mounted as part of the top triple clamp, so you can't change that, you can't make that a larger unit. And if you want to bring the forks up to lower the front of the bike, there's no room to do that. So I put this bar spacer in. Braden's big enough now, he's lifted his TDR back up to the stock height, so I've stolen them off Braden, and that's given us the room to bring the front of the bike down by lifting the fork up through the top triple. But with that handlebar, there's quite a bit of height to that, which is kind of bringing some of these hoses, kind of cables and whatnot, kind of to the limit of where you really want them. So the low bend will bring this down a little bit, which will compensate for having lifted this up, and then these spacers just will let the front suspension lower the bike a little bit. So all we've done for now is change the preload. So I've wound the preload right off for him. So with the preload wound right off and the front end dropped, he can sit with one foot on a foot peg and the other foot nearly flat on the ground with his boots on. So that's working out pretty good. This bike does have, albeit a rusty rim guard, and I'll probably end up changing that at some point. But yeah, one thing to note too, the linkage, no one does a lowering kit for the rear linkage, and when you look at the linkage, it sits quite close. Maybe I'll look at it on the other side. It sits quite close to the swing arm. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it sits quite close to the swing arm. So if you wanted to try and bring the swing arm up closer to the shock in order to try and lower the bike, you've only got, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 millimeters in there that you could do that with. So it would make stuff all difference to the bike, so it's not really worth doing. So that's probably why no one makes a lowering link for the rear suspension. Drum brake rear, something I always hated drum brake rear, but I guess it kind of makes sense for new riders, right? Because if you have a rider that, you know, just sort of rest their foot on the brake pedal, you know, if they're learning, they don't quite understand, and you got to teach them a few things. There's a lot going on. They've got a lot to learn. So if they lean on that rear brake pedal on a disc brake bike, and the caliper grabs on the disc, caliper gets hot, the fluid gets hot, the fluid expands. As it expands, it sort of locks onto the brake. And it's just a vicious cycle. Once it gets hot, it sort of goes in like a thermal runaway and locks it on. So the thing about drums, I guess, is that there's no fluid in there to expand. So if he does ride the rear brake a little bit, that won't be a drama so much. So I guess he's not a new rider. He's been riding another bike, so I don't think it's really an issue for him. But you know, if you're starting out with a new motorbike, you know, first time rider, I guess drum brake kind of makes sense. And sure, they're a little bit wooden, and sure, they don't have quite the power of discs, and we just generally despise them because old bikes have them and new bikes don't. But it kind of makes sense on this bike, and I'm not too worried about it. Disc brake front end, because this is the 19-inch front wheel model. Electric start. The other thing I bought him was one of these. This is it's a DRC lift stand. The thing I like about this one is it is basically infinitely adjustable for height. It's got a collar, and that top plate winds down into the shaft, and that collar effectively lets you adjust it as low as you want. It is at basically the bottom right now, and you can slide it under without adjusting the suspension. The same stand exactly works for big bikes, works on Braden's 250, so it's a pretty good thing. This bike is also kickstart, which when the battery was flat, in order to test ride it, I did kickstart it. It was so easy to kickstart, so probably a good bike to learn how to kickstart on too. And the other thing I did with this DRC stand is, Noah's favourite colour is green, so I pulled the lever out and painted it lime green, a key lime green, which is a colour that the paint tin had on it. So yeah, all in all, so far I'm really happy with the bike. It's a little gem. There's some nice reviews. I might put some links in the description to point people towards some of the things that I've discussed, parts that I bought, the Mikuni Oils website, Ballard's, which is Mixed Store now, and yeah, there'll be some stuff in there, as well as maybe, I don't know, some links to other YouTube videos with reviews that I found really interesting. Oh, that's the other thing I should mention is this shock has, would you believe, a remote reservoir, and it has compression dampening on the remote reservoir, and on the bottom of the shock, if you can see it, where is it? There it is. Rebound dampening, and it's it's preload adjustable. So really happy with that. The front suspension is preload adjustable too, but no compression or rebound. So yeah, so there it is. And kickstart too. No light to indicate if it's on though, so that's a thing. Just gonna have to keep an eye on the guy until he gets used to doing his thing. So anyway, I'll stop talking. I'll upload this. It's kind of a long video, but it's a breakdown of what we've done so far and what we're gonna do. Oh, and welcome to the bachelor pad, where we can have motorbikes inside. So talk to you later.